The sunlight filtered through the tall, arched windows of the grand ballroom, filling the luxurious space with a golden glow that reflected off the glittering chandeliers. The tables were draped in crisp white linens, the air thick with the scent of roses arranged in crystal vases, and the chatter of high society filled every corner. It was a charity luncheon, one of those daytime events where the city's wealthiest gathered to be seen, to gossip, and to prove their status with every movement. And in the middle of it all, moving between tables with a tray balanced carefully in her trembling hands, was a young waitress named Emily. She wore a neatly pressed white shirt and a black apron, her dark hair tied tightly back, her tired eyes scanning the room as she served dish after dish. To the glittering guests, she was invisible, a shadow in the corner of their perfect world. But for Emily, every second mattered, because this job was the thin thread keeping her life from unraveling completely. Emily had grown up with dreams of finishing college, dreams of building a future where she wouldn't have to live paycheck to paycheck. But life had been cruel. Her mother had passed away when she was only 16, leaving her to take care of her younger brother, Luke. Their father had abandoned them years before, and Emily had been forced to step into the role of both provider and protector long before she was ready. For the past 5 years, she had worked any job she could find, cleaning houses, waitressing, washing dishes, anything that would keep food on the table and the electricity running. This hotel job, exhausting as it was, paid just enough to cover rent in the small apartment they shared. She never complained, but the weight of responsibility pressed down on her every day, heavier than the trays she carried through glittering halls filled with laughter she could never share in. That day, however, everything seemed determined to go wrong. Emily had barely slept the night before because Luke had fallen ill with a fever, and she'd stayed up to care for him. By the time she reached work, her body was aching and her head heavy. But she smiled through it all, as she always did. She forced herself to move quickly, to keep her hands steady, to blend into the background like she was trained to. Yet the more she tried to be invisible, the more fate seemed to push her into the spotlight she dreaded. And then it happened, the moment that would change everything. Emily had just placed a delicate plate of salad before a woman draped in pearls when her foot caught on the corner of the thick carpet. The tray tilted, and before she could catch herself, a glass of water spilled onto the pristine tablecloth. Gasps rose around the table. The woman shot up from her chair as though Emily had just committed a crime against her dignity. The guests nearby fell silent, their eyes snapping toward the scene like hawks circling prey. The woman, known to everyone as Margaret Whitmore, a socialite whose reputation for cruelty was as sharp as her diamonds, pointed a manicured finger straight at Emily. Her voice rose above the music, above the laughter, slicing through the room like a knife. "How dare you?" she shouted. "You clumsy, worthless girl. Do you even know where you are? You don't belong here." The humiliation burned Emily's skin. Her face flushed as whispers spread among the tables. She muttered apology after apology, her voice trembling, but Margaret wasn't done. She stood, grabbed the linen napkin, and dabbed at her dress as though Emily had poured acid instead of water. "You're fired," she spat, her voice echoing in the grand hall. "Right here, right now. Get out before you ruin anything else." The room erupted with murmurs, some guests chuckling, others shaking their heads. Emily's world spun. Fired. In front of all these people. She couldn't breathe. She clutched the tray close to her chest, tears stinging her eyes, but she forced herself to stay upright. She had always promised Luke that no matter how hard life got, she wouldn't break. Not in front of others. But standing there, every pair of eyes judging her, her strength faltered. If you believe in kindness, in second chances, and that no one deserves to be humiliated for trying their best, please take a moment to like, share, comment, and subscribe to Kindness Corner. Your support helps stories like Emily's reach hearts across the world. As Emily turned to leave, her hand shaking on the tray, something caught the light, a glimmer that escaped from beneath her apron. The silver pendant she always wore slipped into view. It was a simple necklace, worn down with time, but its design was unique, a compass-shaped pendant with tiny etchings her mother had once told her represented finding your way home. Emily had clung to it for years, the only piece of her mother she had left. She never took it off, not even while working. Today, it had slipped free without her realizing, shining under the ballroom lights for the first time. At one of the nearby tables, a man who had been quietly observing the chaos suddenly froze. He was tall, sharply dressed in a tailored navy suit, his presence commanding even in silence. His name was William Harrington, one of the city's most influential billionaires, though Emily had no idea who he was. He leaned forward, his eyes locked on the pendant, his expression shifting from curiosity to disbelief. He had seen that pendant before, many years ago, on the neck of a woman he had once loved deeply but lost tragically. The room moved on around him, laughter returning as the crowd lost interest in the humiliated waitress. But William couldn't move. His heart pounded as memories rushed back. The compass pendant wasn't just jewelry, it had been a symbol. He had gifted it to a woman named Anna, the love of his youth, who had disappeared from his life decades ago, leaving him heartbroken. And now, here it was, resting on the chest of a young waitress who looked so much like Anna that it was as though time had folded in on itself. William rose from his seat, his chair scraping against the marble floor. Conversations hushed as the billionaire crossed the room. Margaret smirked, expecting him to join in her scolding of the poor girl. But instead, William stopped in front of Emily, his voice calm yet heavy with emotion. "Where did you get that pendant?" he asked. Emily blinked, confused, her tears still threatening to fall. "It was my mother's," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "She passed it down to me." The room gasped again, but this time not from cruelty, from shock. William's face paled as his suspicions confirmed themselves. "What was your mother's name?" he asked, his voice shaking now. Emily hesitated, unsure why this man cared, but she finally said it. "Anna. Anna Carter." William's hands trembled. The name cut through him like lightning. This young woman standing before him wasn't just a waitress, she was the daughter of the woman he had once loved. And that made her family. The story from here unfolded like destiny itself. Emily's life turned upside down that afternoon. William Harrington, billionaire and philanthropist, refused to let her leave that ballroom in shame. He turned to Margaret and, in front of the stunned guests, defended Emily with words that silenced even the harshest whispers. He demanded she be reinstated, but more than that, he declared that no one should ever treat another human being with such cruelty. For the first time in years, Emily felt seen, not as a poor girl struggling to survive, but as someone worth defending. In the days that followed, William sought out Emily, learning about her life, her struggles, her sacrifices for her brother. He insisted on helping her, not out of pity, but out of love for the woman her mother had been and respect for the woman Emily was becoming. He paid for Luke's medical care, ensured their apartment was safe, and most importantly, encouraged Emily to pursue her dreams of finishing school. For Emily, it felt like a miracle, a kindness she had never thought she would receive. The pendant that had always been a reminder of loss suddenly became the key to hope, to a future she never dared to imagine. And as she walked through the city streets in the bright afternoon light, holding her brother's hand, Emily realized something profound. Sometimes, life takes everything away to prepare you for the moment it gives something greater back. If this story touched your heart, please don't leave without liking, sharing, and subscribing to Kindness Corner. Your engagement helps spread these powerful stories of resilience and hope to more people around the world who may need them most. And before we end, tell us in the comments, do you believe that one small object, a pendant, a photo, a letter, can carry the power to change a life? We'd love to hear your thoughts. Because sometimes, in the middle of an ordinary day, a single act of kindness, or a simple pendant, can rewrite the story of someone's life forever.